it's John, and I'm popping in here at the beginning of the episode just to let you know this is the second part of a larger MCU conversation that we started last week. That's me, the co host of the show, Al Schwartz, and our guest for this episode, June Kim. Last week we talked about the 5 best MCU films according to the three of us. And even there, we had some disagreements, and there were some movies that one of us wanted to champion and others did not. So we ended up still talking about those, and it was so long I decided to put it into an entirely different week's episode. So that's what this is. You're going to hear us talking about personal favorites and, anything that didn't quite make it into the last one. Some interesting stuff came up here, and here it is.
The one that fell just outside of this for all of us, I think was our number 7 for everybody was Black Panther.
Mm-hmm.
And I think how that one has kind of fallen down for me a little over time is that it is one of the only, maybe the only, I don't know, maybe, I guess we said this about Winter Soldier too, but one of the only entries in this universe where it is not a comedy. It is an action movie or a drama first and foremost, and the comedy is pretty sparse throughout there.
Yeah.
And then the action is not as great as it could be.
That's the big ding on it for me. I mean, I think it's still a pretty great film, really unique.
Yeah.
The design, the creativity of just this world and these characters and how well thought out it all is. That's so compelling and so interesting that it kind of rises above the action scenes, which are, among the worst of the franchise in a lot of ways. Probably largely because they overreach, I think.
Some of the worst VFX too.
That's a big part of it. Yeah. There's a lack of reality to it. There's having the big finale fight. The finale's the roughest part, but having Black Panther and Killmonger. Their big fight is in an underground railroad. I mean, that's kind of it's the thing that you notice and kind of
okay.
But why? What's the significance for this story for that to be happening other than, shared Black experience? And I'm like, oh, okay.
Except the whole point of Wakanda is they did not share that experience.
What's so cool about that movie, it's reckoning with the idea of Wakanda. If this place actually existed, wouldn't they be a bit culpable for world history if they've had this ability and this power and they've kind of just sat on it? That would be the reality of it if such a place existed. Otherwise our history would look very different, and so they take that on directly. That's what the movie's about, and that is fascinating, and I guess why it works.
And it has one of the strongest villains.
Yeah, for sure.
If not I guess for me, maybe I give Tom Hiddleston the edge because he's proven so versatile over so long, but Killmonger is a lot of people's choice for best villain in these movies. He's got the most understandable motivation.
And magnetic performance too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think when I was talking about the action doesn't hold up that well, there's the opening action scene that's in the dark.
Yeah.
And he's running around in a black suit, so you can't really see anything that's going on. And that's a little rough. In the end, I think it annoys me that, like we've been talking about here, that when you have these invincible God characters, things get a little boring and you need to introduce some vulnerability. And there's a perfect opening here at the end when he gets, overthrown briefly by Killmonger, and they just find a spare Black Panther suit for him, which makes it so the final fight is 2 guys hating each other, but while wearing suits, that means if you hit them, you actually make the other guy stronger. So it's what are we even doing here? And it would have been, you could have done the exact same fight pretty much. It's just, if he doesn't have a Black Panther suit, but he's still challenging him even without the suit, that is so much more heroic and brave. And then also the action sequence is much more dangerous because the villain is invulnerable and the hero is very vulnerable, but you can still work it down there and, to the train and do the same thing.
Well, that is smart. And, well, why didn't they do that? That's really
I
odd.
don't know. Because then you would have to have Chadwick Boseman actually there and not just 2 CGI images flailing at each other.
I mean, that's another thing that hurts those action scenes is the suits are by design they're CGI suits basically. They're like the Green Lantern Ryan Reynolds suits kind of. It's an overlay and it feels like one, even when it's not. It feels like one. they're cool though. Like
Yeah.
they're really cool
Oh,
when they're being
it looks
described.
sweet when you can see it in the light.
And I will say that the James Bond action scene in them, like a third of the way through, in
I dig
Korea,
that one.
that one's really good. That one really works. That's cool. It's making a use of all these gadgets and things it can do in a cool way, and that's just a really fun scene. And and so that one.
And I love all the
good.
production design. The supporting cast is great. The villain's great. There's a lot of good stuff there.
Andy Serkis,
but it feels a little bit like an outlier in the Marvel universe for me because it is not very funny. And that's mainly what draws me to these movies.
I don't think it would have benefited by being funnier, though.
Oh, I'm not saying it would have, but that just
The rewatchability factor probably suffers a bit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Still pretty good.
Oh, the topic of can these movies be emotionally resonant? This is probably the one. I'd say it's the one Marvel movie that actually got me to tear up, and it's about Killmonger's his flashback vision with his father, regretting that he never brought him back home.
That's really good.
So just for that stuff alone, it got that high, despite all my issues with the movie as a action blockbuster. It has to end with a big war. It's basically the Phantom Menace at the end.
Yeah,
it feels like they shot it on the same green screen lawn.
Right. It has that. It has a small white person piloting a ship. I'll try spinning. That's a good trick.
I mean, I guess Martin Freeman is kind of the Jake Lloyd of this film. The opening. Speaking of his dad, the Sterling K. Brown character, that something that catches you on the second time that I think is so cool is the opening narration explaining Wakanda and what their whole deal is.
Right.
Is Sterling K. Brown talking to the young Killmonger?
Yeah,
God,
I realized
that's cool.
that later.
Yeah,
and I went, "Oh my god,
that's so great! What a smart choice. I mean, it's something you don't even understand what's going on until you see it the second time. You're like, oh shit, that's him, and he's growing up with this idea of Wakanda in his brain, and that's how he becomes who he is. It's so good as a piece of character storytelling. The whole thing really has a good handle on all its characters because it's a strong ass good movie. Aside from those action scenes,
yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Such a shame that Chadwick Boseman's death is.
I mean,
recombobulating the sequel to that.
What a bummer. Yeah, like what a star right on the cusp of all his best shit is what it feels like. He just did, all those things. It's absolutely
also in Gods of Egypt.
Yes, he sure is. He's
great
in that.
He got some great stuff off. Like it wasn't like he was like 26.
Yeah, that surprised me.
He was still
like 42.
But he still seemed to be rising.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He was older than he looked. But yeah, it's still like I have no idea how they're going to follow it up. I can't even imagine trying to take on a sequel now. I'm of the camp. I think they maybe should have recast it, but
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
I don't know how he went, but you know what? Like I said at the very top of this, I'm past the point of thinking they can't pull this off because clearly they can't. Whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have to see it. You're gonna have to see what Wakanda Forever is about. Like, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, mostly just want to see how they solve all the problems that they've got trying to make this film, especially what it's supposed to be about. Have you heard any of the casting rumors of what they're doing? Namor. They're doing Namor.
I try and avoid them.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay.
Oh, I think that doesn't mean anything to me, so that's fine.
No, it doesn't mean much yet, but it still seems like really that's the story.
I think it almost is a way to address what you were talking about earlier. Like maybe if Wakanda has been embroiled in a like Cold War or like running feud with Atlantis for centuries, it explains a little bit of how they managed to stay out of world history while these atrocities were happening to Africa. Yeah,
I mean, I suppose the problem, of course, is that there is a grounded and geopolitical kind of facet to Wakanda that is so strong in the first movie. That it does exist in our world, even if it's still part of the MCU. It is taking it in the context of modern Africa and the world, and to be like, and also Atlantis in the next one. I think that's going to be tough. But you said, that maybe they'll pull it off. They have a pretty good track record of pulling shit off.
Maybe Atlantis is like sort of the South Africa of this world, and they've like had an apartheid system going on with Namor or something. And I don't know. Maybe
Best of luck to them.
There's things you can do. I don't know what they are, but we'll find out. So all right, we did our top 5. We're going to talk about one that of our high rankers that missed.
Mm-hmm.
We've kind of done that. I think we talked about Black Panther. We talked about Endgame quite a bit. The only point I wanted to make about that I mentioned earlier is that when I was talking about how the Infinity Gauntlet storyline involves just snap your fingers and half people die, and then you snap it back and it's all undone, and it's almost like none of this ever happened and nothing matters. And I think that part of the genius of Endgame to me is that they found a way to do that storyline and undo the killing half the universe thing without just completely erasing it from existence. And that when you get to the end of Endgame, everything that happened in Infinity War still happened. Everybody remembers it. Everybody is affected by it going forward. The world is changed by what happened in Infinity War. And on top of that, it's not just that you undo all the tragedy. Endgame, throws a couple of new deaths at you that you're going to stick. That right. Black Widow stays dead. That Iron Man is going to be dead. That Captain America's gone. That Gamora stays dead, even though we're going to have a variant of Gamora running around. But we don't just get to the point where at the end of Endgame, the great success is that it's as though Infinity War never happened.
Right.
And that to me is avoiding the big narrative trap that the Thanos storyline was setting up.
I mean, it creates a lot of issues for him to deal with, or storytelling possibilities, I suppose. Yeah. I mean, we've already seen some of those at play in the Disney Plus shows like that. Here's how we're going to deal with this going forward. There is fallout of the blip, which is not the best name, but that means things to the characters from now on. Like if they were gone 5 years, what's that mean? If they didn't go away for 5 years and they had to deal with the thing and they were writing the shit of it, what's that mean for them? Like they have so much flexibility now to do those stories as long as it doesn't destroy their universe, trying to make sense of it all. Because losing half the population in an instant would be catastrophic. Like we wouldn't know how to deal with that at all.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I guess they could
just do the dramatic version of that. They did it on HBO. It was called The Leftovers, and it wasn't even half people. It was like 2% of the people in the world, and it was all about how that irrevocably broke the world.
Yeah.
But the Marvel Universe did its version of that, and I like that they didn't just take it entirely back. That even with all the time travel shenanigans and undoing of things, that there are still repercussions going forward. Things are more complicated rather than less complicated after they did the time travel to undo that thing. And that's, to me, that's a good thing.
Is that gonna? I guess we know already that is not going to be the narrative prompt for Kang the Conqueror, because that was supposed to happen. It was part of the prime timeline of the Timekeepers / Kang / whoever that guy was, kind of thing. So
yeah,
so it was supposed to happen that way, right? And I guess he got all the stones back where they belonged. There's a lot to keep track of in that film. I kind of love that they treat time travel as like, no, it actually doesn't change the past at all, and that's not a thing. Don't worry about it. Like that they can't undo things that have already happened. I think that's very useful for them, and I like it.
Well, that's to contrast this with the DC universe again, that is like maybe going to do Flashpoint to try and like erase the parts of the DC movies that didn't work, the large swaths of it that nobody likes. The thing that Marvel had going for it going into Endgame is that even the lesser parts, the dark worlds of the Marvel universe, there's no need to like erase that from existence. They don't need to undo any of that shit. So they get to do the fun time travel thing and make it just a tour, a greatest hits tour, a clip show of some of the fun moments of the past, but they don't have to actually change any of it to move forward.
Yes, that is nice. I mean, it's the opposite, I guess, of what X-Men did too, which became a giant mess that no one understands at this point. Like I have no idea if there's a prime timeline in that. It feels like that's the wrong way to approach those films, really, because it doesn't work.
No, I agree with you. Okay, so what we need to do this is the impetus for this episode was that after we did our Black Widow episode, we sort of we were casually comparing our favorite Marvel movies, and John, put Doctor Strange at the top of your list.
Yes.
And I was so flabbergasted by this. Like about matters of taste, there can be no argument. So don't argue, but explain to me how you could possibly be so wrong.
Okay. You have my back on this one, right, June? This is
I dig the movie.
yeah.
Where did I put it?
I think you put it in the top 10. Like,
Mhm.
I was shocked by that. I have it like way at the bottom.
Okay.
I have a lot of issues with that movie, but it's more execution based. But I like what it's doing a lot.
Okay, so it is not a perfect film. I can't say this is like they nailed this one 100%. Like the comedy does not really work in this. It's it very much feels like they had comedians take a pass at the script and say, "Make this funnier, please." And I mean, I think it is kind of. It's not unfunny. I think some of the jokes land. Even the dumber ones are like Beyonce. So that's
Some,
not.
some of them do, but that's why it's towards the bottom of mine. Is that it is one of the less funny.
It is. But and beyond that, I would even say this: I don't think Benedict Cumberbatch nails it first time out the gate. I think he's okay.
Yeah.
I think he's solid. A solid B.
Yeah.
He's all right in the role. I think it was a very smart hire because of the way they're going to be using this character going forward. You can see that in Infinity War and all his other little appearances. Like, okay, as the Sorcerer Supreme, that he's definitely got the right vibe and the right energy. But that all said, this is definitely the most emotionally compelling film in the franchise for me. This one is, I think, the most thematically elegant. I think this one actually has ideas in its head. I think it has a real take on being a superhero where it is like a calling and a sacrifice rather than a power fantasy. Like it costs him something to become a superhero. It is, and what the film is ultimately about is about selflessness over ego and letting go of self, and giving up on the on your own personal wants and desires for the greater good in a way that all these other films kind of might give lip service to, but don't really. It's not really a theme. It's not what the film's about. And every character in this,
you think that comes through emotionally though? Like
it does for me.
It's sort of an intellectual exercise for me, and I dig the finale how they eschew the big, glowing portal battle for this more switcheroo thing that he does.
Yeah. Well, first off, yeah, all the action scenes in this are great. And they're more effects than action, I guess you'd say, but they're all creative, individual, and they're unlike anything you've ever seen. I guess it's a little bit like Inception, but it's kind of what I wanted Inception to do more, which is like buildings just flipping and folding on themselves back and forth, rather than like, well, if I think about it, it'll turn on a right angle, and that's fine for Inception. But this one really just like, yeah, we're gonna actually do all that stuff. We're gonna have those action scenes where people fall into like columns as they are collapsing on themselves and get crushed. That sort of thing happens in Doctor Strange, and so they're indulging in that sense. But yeah, even that ending though, that is so good. It's once again, it's about this idea of triumphing over the self, defeating because Dormammu, the big god at the end of the universe, his entire deal is that self becomes the most important thing in the world. There is nothing except myself. I am the entirety of existence should be me, and the ultimate hard line sense of ego, and everything else is an impediment to just his existence. And so it's sort of a metaphorical villain, because that is kind of what Doctor Strange is triumphing over the course of the film. People say, it's a little like it's a little like Iron Man. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I prefer a more tangible villain that can be tussled with a little more, or at least, even if it's not.
You got Mads. You got Mads in there.
You can't just beat them up, but I say this is an issue that the Black Widow movie shares too with Doctor Strange, is that it's less satisfying to me when the big villain doesn't actually like appear or interact with anybody until like the second half of the third act. Like we don't have like they're not built up throughout. I mean, they're built up maybe off screen throughout the film, but they're not interacting with anybody.
That's true.
With the hero.
He's not.
They're an idea.
I mean, to the extent that Dormammu is a character and not just Doctor Strange's internal struggle, externalized as a sort of a force in the universe. It's he doesn't show up till the end, and he's actually played by Cumberbatch, which is kind of cool. They figured that out,
nice
right? Like that. This is him defeating his own sense of ego, and but I do really like Mads Mikkelsen in this film. Mads Mikkelsen is always going to give you value. He's always going to be great.
Well-
Even if you have kind of an underwritten character, he's going to elevate it as much as he can, and he really does. He has that one wonderful scene where he's talking about why he's doing what he's doing, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
As much as such a thing can.
Yeah.
You know, like, yeah, I'm bringing this destruction god from the edge of the universe so everyone will have eternal life. Isn't that an obvious thing to do? Why are you fighting me on this? That's great.
Right.
And
this is one too where I like sort of like Black Panther, where I may sympathize with the villains over the heroes to an extent. Certainly, like Mordo, when he at the end decides there's too much magic in this universe. I'm like, yeah, you know what? Let's simplify this shit a little bit.
Well, yeah, Mordo's a good character too. I mean, this is because his argument is that you need a moral framework, and Strange is like, no, pragmatism. The world's falling into the dark dimension. We should stop that, right? Even if it means breaking our own rules, because he is pragmatically about helping everyone at that point. Like, what is the least dangerous thing? What is the thing that will save the most people as a logical equation, which is kind of his thing too. It's all great, and Wong is involved in that too. What's that actor? Benedict Wong, as that character is like a servant in the comics. Like, it's, like a racist stereotype kind of thing, and they kind of figured out a better way for him to be, which is he's more of a man at arms, just a good general kind of guy who's a lot smarter than everyone else in a lot of ways. Yeah. But like, when he's against breaking the rules too, but then he's able to get over that once he's been spitted on a piece of rebar and brought back from the dead.
Stop now.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, okay, keep breaking the rules of reality, and because that pragmatism ultimately is kind of where the movie comes down on, which I think is interesting. It is not a tidy moral resolution to this, because Mordo does have a point.
He does,
yeah.
But and to your point about Wong, also another character who gets a surprising amount of play in Infinity War.
Yeah, because he popped, because he's really good in the role. He's good to have around. Yeah, and I guess he's going to be in Shang-Chi. Yeah,
he never got his tuna melt.
I know.
Nobody mentioned.
But I remember his lunch order. That's so weird.
Nobody's going to mention Tilda Swinton. Like, that's a big part of the reason I like the movie as much as I do.
Oh, how much?
I think she's great.
Great, yeah, and I really like the caster. Yeah, sorry.
Along with all the whitewashing stuff aside, I could talk about that for hours. But in the end, she's still perfect. Yeah, I completely go along with that.
The whitewashing for me feels like it could go either way, because if you cast an Asian actor in that role, and then I think you get like almost an equal amount of flack for playing into stereotypes about mystical.
See, that's what Derrickson would argue, and I think that is limited thinking. I think if you got an Asian American actor that doesn't play into those stereotypes, that would have been just as fun.
But why do they have to be Asian American? Couldn't they just be?
I'm just talking about because usually they end up going with just like flat out like a Chinese star from from across the sea who will have an accent. Who his thing was that they thought maybe someone like Michelle Yeoh, but he was afraid to lean into the dragon lady stereotype. And I was like, I feel that's a degree of writing. Like, I'm sure somebody will complain about it, but in the end, like the way I can say, I could watch Tilda Swinton and go, she did a great job. I can watch somebody like doesn't have to be necessarily be a woman. It could have been a guy like
Benedict Wong could have done it.
Yeah, it really could have been anybody, any ethnicity, any gender.
I mean, even Tilda Swinton plays it very casually. That's one of the fun parts of her performance. She doesn't play it like a mystic woo person. She's just like, it's just a bit of tea with honey. Like, it's just very matter of fact about there's a practicality to the way she describes these things. And an Asian actor, pick a bright person, they could have done that. But I think whatever way he wanted to justify to himself to cast Tilda Swinton, it's cool. It worked out with her. She's great. But I think the justification was I found it very iffy.
Yeah, I didn't quite buy it.
Kevin Feige is, now that, like how many years, it's been like 4 years since that movie came out. Kevin Feige is now saying, yeah, maybe we should have done something else there. It's like, thanks for the mention.
I mean, I think the real reason probably was a large part of just like, well, we don't want to piss off China because of Tibet or however we're doing that. Like there's politics involved. And also, wouldn't it just be fun to cast Tilda Swinton? Isn't that cool? I think they just kind of wanted to do that too. And she is great.
The Tibet thing, I have no idea how to parse that. Like, I have no idea. Mm-hmm. The thing is, like, right now the casting of Shang-Chi, the guy they got, I suddenly can't remember his name.
Simu Lee, something like that.
Simu Liu.
Okay.
he's currently like he can't stop looking at social media and how China just thinks he's ugly, so you're gonna run into stuff like that. This is like Simu Liu's casting. Why couldn't they cast one of our homegrown actors instead of a guy that conforms to this squinty-eyed, round moon-faced, stereotypes? Like what? And I'm thinking, what? He's a perfectly fine-looking man. So you're gonna run into stuff no matter what. I mean, they ran into it with Tilda Swinton anyway, so you're gonna, there's a battle every which way. So in that case, I'm just saying Derrickson or Marvel's, justification for the casting or, what they officially said, I don't buy it, but, the end result, I'm still cool with.
Wow. People think this guy's ugly.
Right. I mean, it's not what current mainland China's, movie fans consider, attractive.
Okay. I guess I have no room to talk. I was just talking about how ugly Jeremy Renner was the last episode we did. So, no, I and maybe this is a dumb thing, but I almost feel like there's if you're gonna whitewash a role, like maybe the best way to get away with it is by casting Tilda Swinton. Just because she feels like a little outside of like race and gender and maybe humanity a bit.
I'm sure that was the logic behind casting her. They needed somebody who could play an elf or whatever was the thinking. Like somebody who has an ethereal quality or an oddness, and maybe even a bit of androgyny to them, and that's very effective for the role. And I think she's a really interesting, great actress, and so of course it works to have her play the role.
I've been a fan. Been a fan for a long time, like since The Beach. I think that's my first exposure to Tilda Swinton.
Yeah,
was she in that? Oh.
Yeah, she was the camp leader. Like,
yeah, I got to see The Beach again. How's that hold up? I wonder.
I have no idea.
Who would
I haven't
know?
seen it since then.
It's been a very long time.
She's great in Only Lovers Left Alive, also so playing wonderful. A sort of inhuman,
with Loki,
a vampire there. Yeah, with Loki.
Yeah, good movie. She's always great.
If you want to see the Ancient One and Loki get sexy together, go watch Only Lovers Left Alive.
Yeah, that movie is very strong. Really cool film, and yeah, she's always interesting. She's always great. She's great in Michael Clayton, kind of playing not a human in that really either. And yeah. So the whole cast kind of nails it, except Cumberbatch. I guess I really do kind of wish they got Joaquin Phoenix for the role, but Cumberbatch is great in the following roles, and this is the kind of role he's going to be an elder statesman. It's fine. He's going to be good in the going forward.
I actually, aside from just kind of iffy character at the point, I actually really enjoy what a just asshole they make him for like the first half. He's so mean to Rachel McAdams. Yeah, he's like so mean.
That's really good. That scene when he's just like, "Why are you still helping me? What is? Am I your project?" That stuff, because it is off-putting, and they're not afraid of making him off-putting. Like Tony Stark, they say it's like that, but Tony Stark is always appealing. I mean, the first movie is kind of supposed to be Entourage. That's the vibe of it. And they're actually making Strange a dick.
There's a scamp nature to Tony Stark that that Cumberbatch doesn't have.
Yeah, he just seems to not enjoy people. Like it's like he can't. Like, he doesn't like being around humans. He likes kind of just playing domination games. Yeah.
Even though he's playing an American in Doctor Strange, he brings a Britishness to it.
Yeah.
I don't know how you'd avoid it with
Downey.
Him. Yeah.
It's kind of like a Dr. House a little bit.
Yeah.
Extremely.
Yeah, and that's why. So he's a little aloof, a little sort of misanthropic. That he's
got the voice. He's got the voice. He's got the Dr. House kind of flattened out American accent.
Yeah. But he brings some like a belief in the caste system with him. That is like when he's lashing at Rachel McAdams, saying like, "What am I, your project?" Like, because that's how he thinks of his patients as his project, that he can add to his greatness by fixing them. Mm-hmm. And so when she's trying to help him, he projects that onto her and resents it. So I don't know. Maybe I talk myself into this being a better characterization.
Yeah. Which is why like all the Beyonce stuff feels so off.
Yeah, it doesn't.
That suddenly feels like it's
that's
lines
the rewrites coming through.
Yeah, it's like lines meant for Stark as opposed to Strange.
I think that is really what it comes down to. It's not the other external stuff that's similar. It just is that they wrote him Tony Stark jokes, and they don't totally fit with the vibe of the film. And again, the movie,
and yet they keep the movie alive for me.
It doesn't
go like at times.
It's not worse for being funny, is the truth. Like it helps that there's some laughs in there, even if they're kind of like sitcom level laughs. But they're not dumb. That's not there for no reason. So maybe they could do that a little better, but otherwise, it's not an issue for me. It's still this thing, and we didn't even talk about this other thing, which is it's also about is eternal life worth it, or is that less good than having a purpose in your life? Is it also another thing that ties into the the worship of self over over selflessness, and that scene out in the rain where the Ancient One stops time as she's
Great
dying.
scene.
Yeah, it's one
a
of the
great
best
scene.
scenes in the MCU, I think. And it also it has the line, "It's not about you,"
Yeah.
which should be the whole thing for for superhero stories, and they actually pull it off in this one. That's why I think it works. But I love that she is like she talks about it like, yeah, I've been able to see the future forever. It always ends here for me, and I can't let it go. I'm even in the end, as much as I want to think I'm above this, I'm just as susceptible to mortality and the fears of death as anyone else. And the only way I can kind of eventually let go is realizing it's not about you. Good movie. It's a real movie.
I'm very satisfied with how that went.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't even get into my breakdown of how it's a metaphor for the 2016 presidential election, and I think that's to everyone's
Right.
benefit. Yeah.
Wait, how does that work? I don't have a sense of it.
Oh, okay. It's about the 2016 election. Tilda Swinton is the Hillary Clinton figure, in that she is the pragmatist. She is the safe bet. She is the one that like, you're not happy about all the way she's doing shit. She seems compromised. She seems dirty for some reason you can't quite put your finger on. But ultimately, she's the one you kind of got to go with, right? She's the really the one that you need in there, because she's pragmatic. Mordo is the the hard left, the Bernie Bros, he's just sort of like, no, we have to be about something, we have to mean something, or this is bullshit. You can't just be like, oh well, we needed the Still Stone, we needed the Time Stone so we had to break that rule. That's bullshit. No, we should be better than this. We don't want to be like them. And Mads Mikkelsen is the Trump supporters.
Oh, I've heard all of it. The problem with this is that Mads Mikkelsen is both principled and competent.
Yeah, that is a problem that falls apart there.
Is this all about Dr. Centrist?
Yeah, it's Dr. Centrist. It's entirely Dr. Centrist. And Dormammu's Trump. It makes sense. It's all about him. It's self-worship. Yeah, okay, but you're
just a big bloviating sphere. Yeah.
It's a universe where everything is about him.
What are you doing? Stop
Okay.
this. Come on now. Come on.
Okay, so Sash, that was John's number one. He wants Marvel movies to be like a Bergman,
yes,
art house bullshit.
Sure, yeah,
about the meaning of existence.
Well, they also
they
also fight in mirror dimensions. Come on.
I, on the other hand, want Marvel movies to be comedies with some colorful sets and characters and a decent action set piece or two. And that's why my pick for number one, which fell just outside of our consensus top 5, was Guardians of the Galaxy number 1. And I think this is because it is, again, like Ragnarok or Iron Man 3, I'd say a contender for one of the funnier movies of the last 10 years. It is a laugh out loud comedy from start to finish. It's got some decent action in there. It follows sort of the same trajectory of the Avengers that we were talking about, where it gets better as the team coalesces. And the more of them get together, the better things get. But it also starts better than the Avengers and is still entertaining in the early solo portions. More, fun soundtrack, as you know. Just a fun, good, hard pressed to find me a more entertaining 2 hours, and I'll buy you a Coke.
Yeah, and it's pretty efficient about it. Isn't it just about 2 hours? Like it doesn't overstay its welcome.
A little under.
Yeah, that's always good when it's under 2 hours. I think that almost always helps. Maybe you want to do like one of the bigger Avengers films, that can be over 2 hours. Otherwise, none of these should be over 2 hours.
Like Black Widow shouldn't have been over 2 hours.
No.
Yeah. It should have been an hour 45 at most. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Infinity War and Endgame, sure. You can. I'll give you those. I'll even give you Civil War. It can be 2 hours 10 if you want,
right?
Because there's a lot going on. A lot of you're throwing Iron Man or Spider-Man in there when you don't have to. But I'll grant you an extra 10 minutes.
And Batman v Superman can be 3 hours.
Should be, yeah.
Right. Yeah. But anyway, then.
I mean, who doesn't like Guardians of the Galaxy? It works. It's fun. All the characters land. They all pop. They're all fun. every single one of them has a internal core that makes sense. Even Groot. It's a good movie.
Yeah.
I am the only reason it's not higher on my list is because it falls into, bad guy wants a stone. Well, if we work
Yeah.
together, we'll stop him, and like that's just it's so basic. And I understand that they need something basic for all the other ideas they're introducing here, all the worlds and new races of things that general audience is not familiar with that are just appearing and they're kind of have to get across. I mean, that was the big knock on this thing before it came out, was like, this is going to be too weird. People are not going to accept this from Marvel. This is a step too far to have a tree person or whatever it was.
And then the big knock on it after it came out was this was not actually weird at all.
Yeah.
It turns out it's a very easily relatable, comprehensible story.
Yes, it is. It is. But as a result of that, you've got like a bad guy who is pretty one note. I mean, he's entertainingly one note, but come on.
I really enjoy him.
Yeah, he's fun.
Really? No, I'd say that's the one thing. I'm the proponent here. I'd say, yeah, it's got a weak villain, but
no, I think the villain is weak, but I love the performance. Just how oh.
I think that's fair. He's fun.
Lee Pace is just really Lee Pace got a really crappy role in the Hobbit movies, but I still love his performance. He's just so
he's a standout in those.
He's so catty.
Yeah,
and in this he's very growly.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't get anything. He's the one character the script serves up nothing to. Like John C. Reilly gets more to do than he does, or more to work with.
I think that the issues I've always had with Guardians is just it's kind of like Black Panther, where I'm not that into the action. The action set pieces they're fine. But the character work is so good that I go with it. But it's little stuff throughout where it tries to set up stakes right as they're important in a way where I feel like that should have been set up so that it would be more exciting before then. It just kind of, it's all throughout. It just kind of kept happening through in that movie where even Groot's sacrifice, where I don't know why that would kill Groot. I don't know why that, so it ends up not being
why re-entry from orbit that's burning him up. I thought it seemed self-explanatory to me.
I mean, because I've seen him regrow so many times and extend and everything. So I don't like being a big, gentle wood ball that he creates. And if it breaks apart, I feel like a core of him would, this is just, nerd nitpickery.
I mean, it does, right? I mean, that's exactly what happens though. He does regrow from it.
But as a baby though, it's just then why is he sad about it? Oh, Groot, no, you'll die. Rocket comes up right when it's about to happen and says, no, don't do this, you'll die. And I'm going, why would he die?
I mean, just because, hey, how about some steaks? I think.
Right, yeah, right. So, and that's what I mean.
Clearly he comes right up against dying. He's down to a little grub that then has to regrow from a baby. I think this is also this almost loops back to what I was talking about in Endgame. It's not a pure take backsies, the way that say, Chewbacca was on another transport is just it's a thing we said was happening, but actually it wasn't happening. And it was a totally different thing. This, it carries forward through all of Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and Infinity War.
Yep.
Groot is a different version of himself because of what happened here, even though it is sort of taking back the death, quote unquote.
So yeah, it's just when it's you'll die, it's but I just kind of question the premise of it right in that moment. It's just, and the movie's going for big sweet emotion, the music swelling, and because of that block, I'm just kind of it just feels like Iron Giant, but it doesn't work. It feels like the Iron Giant Superman thing, but it doesn't work because Iron Giant survives too.
Right.
But it works great for me.
It works all right for me. I think it's solid. It's, I was like, oh, he didn't say I am Groot. He said we are because
we are Groot.
Because it means more now. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not complex, but it is effective. It works on this very simple level, which is great. If I'm going to nitpick that scene, it was more I'm not sure how is being embedded in a bunch of knobby pieces of wood going to soften the landing?
A lot of splinters.
Yeah, this is not an airbag exactly. But whatever, it works for me because I see what they're doing and I appreciate the sentiment of it. Yeah, and like I said, it is simple. It's Care Bear shit. It's together we can stop the mean man from getting his magic rock.
In that way, I do really
that never doesn't work for me.
I do like the finale where they're all holding hands. So that works for me.
Yeah, I mean,
It's very
I
simple.
made the argument
That
for
works.
Thor, but I mean, this is probably a better version of that. I think it's higher on my list than Thor. It's or it's right around the same place anyway. It's a similar idea, I think, and that it is kiddie stuff, but done well is appealing. It's charming when that works, and I like that about
And
this.
I think James Gunn works a lot of like fun little tweaks to the convention in here. Things like challenging the villain to a dance off at the end. Like that's not actually how the conflict resolves, but it is this weird diagonal moment that you don't expect there,
Right.
and it's fun and it's in character. And it's surprising, and the one that tickles me a ton to think about is just how this movie gets to a point in the second act where they just it's time for an action sequence, and there's a million different, well, maybe there's not a million different ways, maybe there's like 5 ways that action movies usually contrive to make the mid second act action sequence face off the villain happen. This is the only movie I can think of where it happens just because one of the heroes gets wasted and drunk dials the villain to talk shit.
That is really good.
That's, hey man, you ain't shit. Come get me.
Like, how'd you get my number? How'd you get my number?
I love that. It's just great.
I mean, it's a part of all these characters really working that totally seems like a Drax thing to do, and that Dave Bautista is so immediately great in this role and this character.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of true of all of them. I mean, never again or before has Chris Pratt kind of hit this level of charm and appeal. I guess on Parks and Rec, but that was all sort of a build up to this performance in this movie.
So.
Yeah,
and it was all downhill afterwards. Unfortunately,
I mean, I think Bradley Cooper's best work is probably A Star Is Born, but he's never been more likable than he is voicing this rabbit.
He's so good as this character. I am a big fan of the second one. I rated it.
I like the second one.
Yeah. That would
I like it. It's a little bit messier.
It's
than
definitely
the first
messy.
One, so
It's the weird one. It's the one where it's actually weird.
It's very weird. They take their capital. They know that these characters work and people like it, and they're just like, good. What can we do now? I mean, this feels very James Gunn, and just that like it is not the safe move at all to make this movie the way it is. But it's I think much better for it. That it's sort of this weird. Parallel narratives that all kind of build into one thing. It's not a major there's no soul stones. There's no big plot. It's kind of just 4 plots coalescing at the end into one thing.
Oh yeah, okay. You mean structurally one big plot. I mean, there is ostensibly, if Kurt Russell wins, he's going to devour the universe or something. Right?
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of almost an afterthought, and probably the weakest part of the film is that the big finale action scene. It's
there's still a lot of fun character stuff going on.
There's great stuff in it, but just it's a lot of visual noise. It's a lot of pixel crush, you can't really tell what's going on. You have no sense of the geography that we're working with. Characters are falling 800 feet, or probably not 800 feet, but several hundred feet, and crashing onto rocks, and they're fine.
Black widowing all over the place.
And I guess you could make the argument.
I mean, it's a little
the gravity's different on this planet, or whatever.
The gravity is different. None of the none of these people are actually human.
Yeah.
So Gamora's enhanced in certain ways. Star-Lord's half whatever.
Celestial.
Or they're getting devoured by living rocks, though. This stuff you can't just shake off, or it means nothing, and that's kind of what happens. But within that,
there's some of that.
Within that, you've got stuff like the Yondu Mary Poppins joke. You've got all these moments that some of them are even oversold, but they still work for me. And I like this movie more.
And talking about working in actual life and death stakes and emotional stakes is that what I think James Gunn did well here is realizing that Yondu is about the biggest character that you can actually kill off in one of these movies, and so he expend some effort building up Yondu as a character we care about, and then kills him off. And so there is a little bit of, a touch of emotional resonance here that we didn't get in Black Widow or Captain Marvel.
He's the Thor of that movie. Another sharing scene with Rocket.
Yeah. I'm so grateful for James Gunn giving Michael Rooker a showcase. At this point in his career, I've always really liked Michael Rooker. He's a great actor. And he's such an interesting presence in any film, even going back to when he was young and he didn't always play these sort of gruff monsters that are kind of his main thing now. But this is this is a performance that elevates a career. I feel Like now, when Michael Rooker dies, there'll be like, scenes of him at the Oscars playing Yondu because this character works so well. Yeah, it's
Yeah, he's like 8th build, but one of the most memorable things about them.
yeah, that he, and that the movie's kind of about him and Rocket, really. Like
It is.
it seems like
Quill
it's going
is
to be
a
about
supporting
Star-Lord, and his dad, but it's not really. They're there,
Yeah.
but they're almost there to support the Yondu Rocket story, which is about
I'd agree with
angry fucks who push people away before they can get rejected themselves. And they're just dealing with that. I love that. That's so fun and so not what you would expect from a Guardians sequel, especially after the first one, or as part of this franchise, that it is about, people dealing with their flaws. Almost every single one of them is just dealing with their shit in this movie. Like Peter Quill is like it frames his kind of being an immature jackass as like a flaw, as opposed to being what people like about him,
Yeah, as opposed to the charming part.
Yeah, and Gamora and Nebula dealing with their shitty relationship and their dad, who's Thanos. That is kind of playing laterally to all these other things going on, but also reinforces the main thing, which is that this movie is about family, and more so than actual, like, so many movies are about family. The Fast and the Furious movies would be the main example I'm thinking of here, where it's just sort of a platitude, It's like, well, we care about each other and that's our thing. We're family, and this is actually about family. This is about like, these people disappoint you sometimes. They let you down. You have this relationship with them. Sometimes you have to outright reject them. Like the, his blood father in this, Kurt Russell, is the bad guy. Like he is, the planet destroying monster at the end of the film. And he decides, no, you know what? Actually, the person who taught me how to be a man is fucking Yondu. And so he's my dad, really. That is incredibly
who I previously
satisfying.
rejected.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, I think it's very smart about what it's doing. And even as it has bad elements, especially the action stuff, it kind of works on a way none of these other films do for me. More Bergman stuff, basically.
No, it's not Bergman. It's fun. These are, it is also
comedy.
one of the movies that just on a scene by scene basis. Yeah, it's just entertaining. These characters are fun
funny
to watch.
as hell. This is one of the funnier ones too, I think. So that helps as well. Yeah.
And what I think, as I look at my list too, maybe I guess I put Iron Man 3 pretty high, but that notwithstanding, I didn't put that high. What I'm attracted to is the ensembles. I love seeing all these characters bounce off each other. And the Avengers movies are good for that. That's why I rate them all pretty high, but especially the first one in Endgame, where you have the most possible, the multi-ball bonus is up to like 8 balls there while it's bouncing around. But the Guardians movies themselves are just great ensemble work. There's nothing more satisfying to me, I guess, than a scene of 4 or 5 like well-drawn characters that are just having a 4 or 5 way like argument, or like they're debating. And there's one of those in the Avengers, when it ends with Banner holding the staff, where they're all just like this person, like person A snipes at person B, and then person B goes back at them, and then person C drops something in there that then turns person A against person C, and it's just bouncing around these quick, unpredictable patterns, but everybody's acting in concert. And maybe there's no better version of that than the sort of scene in Guardians of the Galaxy 1, where they're sitting around in a circle debating about whether they're going to go participate in the big action finale. And you get just great stuff. Drax saying, when do you say it? Like 5 seconds ago. I was thinking about something else. Which is such a weird thing that you normally like wouldn't put into a script, but Dave Bautista plays it really well.
Bautista, quite a find, huh? Like, I mean,
immediately a star.
Yeah, and like immediately the best wrestler turned actor, it seems to me. I mean, in my opinion, I don't think The Rock's ever delivered anything quite as good as Drax.
I think there are Fast and Furious fans that would quibble with us.
Sure.
I think ironically, there's a great deal of more sincerity that comes out of Bautista playing somebody so flat, as opposed to The Rock's very, very cultivated, controlled,
all things to all
machine.
People. Yeah,
yeah. And like and then Bautista will be in like Blade Runner 2049, and he's good in that too. It's a small part.
Yeah.
Well, I think Bautista also benefits from the fact that he is trying to be a character actor, and The Rock is trying to be
Yeah.
a leading man. Whereas, I think of the two, Batista is clearly better suited to character roles. So
Excuse me, have you not seen Stuber?
I know. No, people said it didn't work though. I mean,
No, it wasn't very good. It's pretty forgettable.
but can he play an evil Harkonnen villain in the new Dune movie? I bet he can.
Really can.
I bet
I
it'd
bet
be
he
great.
can, yeah.
So they're all kind of working in that way. They're all doing character performances in this, and they're all kicking ass with it. Closest one to a lead, I guess, would probably be Gamora if the movie doesn't treat her that way.
No, she's too tied to Quill stuff,
Yeah.
initially, but at least she gets to branch out with her sister stuff, which is really nice.
Yeah, then Nebula almost becomes the more interesting version of her.
Oh, yeah.
as the movies wear on, because she's more fucked up by their past.
Like we were talking about Chris Pratt, like the not a downfall, but like that was the first Guardians was the peak of Chris Pratt. It's almost like, I'm sure this wasn't intended, but it almost feels like Gunn knew that there was a bit of a Pratt overload because of Jurassic World success and that success, and just what else was there? I can't remember, but like I like that the second movie really is the Rocket and Yondu story, and it literally ends with a close up of Rocket, not Quill.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't remember that.
The final. That really struck me that first time I saw that. Oh man, this is Rocket's story. It ends with a tearful close up of him,
and he's crying. Yeah, it's a crying CGI raccoon, and at the end of the movie, and it totally works emotionally. Yeah, the end of the movie gets me. Afraid to admit. The Cat Stevens of it. Oh god.
I do actually. I like the father son stuff with Kurt Russell and Chris Pratt because it's playing the sort of cats in the cradle stuff with the tongue partly in cheek. Like
yes.
and Kurt Russell's great for that,
And, all right. The scene of them playing catch is fun. Like, Dad, I'm playing catch.
Yeah, and you can have all the crap however you want, but I love the part where he's like been revealed that he has these world altering powers, and his response is to giggle and go, "Oh, I'm gonna make some weird shit."
He's good in this role.
That's like the essence of Pratt's, appeal.
He's even good in Infinity War, where everyone hates him. I mean, it's consistent with the character that he fucks things up that much. It's fun.
He doesn't do anything different. It's I maintain that the Russos perform a degree of character assassination on it by painting in such a bad situation that it's like, oh man, everybody hates me now.
I wonder how much that ushered in the everyone hates Chris Pratt kind of thing. Just what a prick he is in Infinity War.
I think it's a timing thing. I think people are a little bit over it a little bit, and I'm sure people still like him. Generally, people still like him. I guess Tomorrow War did very well for Amazon Prime. I have no idea.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine.
Yeah, the internet turned on him a little bit, but he's still fine.
He's fine.
I think that's probably, I put that more down to Jurassic World than Guardians.
Right. Those are very unappealing movies, or at least his character is very unappealing in those movies.
Yeah. He has a wheelhouse, and when he branches outside of it, it doesn't work for me.
It seems to be like he's best when he's a kid trying to be Harrison Ford, like playing pretend that he's Harrison Ford. But when he's actually called on to be Harrison Ford, it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. All right.
Which is why it's so weird when people try to fan cast him as Indiana Jones.
It's going to happen one day.
Well, we talked about pretty much every part of the Marvel Universe except for the Spider-Man and Ant-Man movies. Do you guys have any feelings you would like to share about Ant-Man?
They're fine.
I really enjoyed it. I really enjoy it. I wish Edgar Wright got to make it. I think the final movie ends up being they're genial, just like the Spider-Man movies. Spider-Man movies have better highs though. Like I really love the car scene with Michael Keaton.
Yeah, I think Homecoming's pretty good. It might be my favorite Spider-Man movie, to be honest. I'm not a fan of the Tobey Maguire ones, not even 2.
I'm less of a fan of them as they go on, but I still love Spider-Man 2 a lot.
Yeah,
I'm a huge fan of 2 and 3.
Yeah.
But Spider-Man's a better character than Ant-Man, I would say.
Oh yeah. But, just a little, yeah.
I enjoy that Ant-Man is the lightweight part of this universe, and that it does not ask you to invest in it. Like it doesn't try and pretend that it's just as important to the overall structure,
Right.
or that it's just as weighty as Thor: The Dark World or whatever the series.
Even though it ends up being one of the most important parts with Endgame,
yeah,
with Ant-Man coming back, it hinges on him.
Yeah, but they've got a real handle on how to do that. You know, Ragnarok was also very important to Infinity War and like setting up that up, but it still got to be a complete comedy unto itself without the strain of that intruding onto the movie. In the same way with Ant-Man and the Wasp does not feel burdened by having to do any lifting for Endgame.
Which is probably why I enjoy those just perfectly fine as much as I do.
They're
like
yeah,
the
they're
baggage
fine.
isn't there.
They're fine. I'm very interested to see what they do with Kang the Conqueror being in the new one. I'm all for these movies, but I can't say they've at any point gotten under my skin the way some of these other ones have. You know, like I'm always at a slight remove from the Ant-Man corner of the franchise.
No, I think they're very engaging. They're fun on that scene to scene level of that. There's something amusing in every scene, and especially in 2, I think they have a good deal of fun playing with the size powers.
That's always fun. Yeah. I actually really.
I mean, there's no internal consistency. It makes no sense.
No.
Like ostensibly, it's a power to shrink because you can still be just as strong as a person at 1 inch size, but then also when necessary, he doesn't have the full weight of a person. He weighs an ant amount, and when he grows, I guess weighs 3,000 pounds instead of like according to the logic of how they set up the power. He should be just like a kite that blows away in the wind when he grows to 30 feet.
Explain it away with just say quantum, and it's explained away. Quantum.
Yeah,
whatever you need it to be.
I mean, I think they probably know they're never going to make something that makes scientific sense when they're making an Ant-Man movie.
So they don't try. They don't care. That's fine.
I'm actually a big fan of the Corey Stoll villain in the first Ant-Man. I think that's an underrated performance.
So am I.
Because it's very Miguel.
You guys are all in for Ronin and Yellow Jacket. What is going on here?
Yeah. He's fun.
It's less the role he plays as a villain, but more the way Corey Stoll plays him.
Yeah, the role is nothing.
I couldn't even tell you how.
He plays it like a Paul Verhoeven corporate bad guy, like a guy who has a bad coke habit, and it's made him an asshole villain. It's fun. It feels like he's in a RoboCop film, and I think that's what they're going for.
You know what I like in the Ant-Man movies? Well, Michael Pena's fun.
Yes.
And that the drunk history gimmick they do with him is always amusing whenever it pops up. But I really love Bobby Cannavale in there because there is absolutely no reason for him to be in there. They don't need to include him, and if they did include him, it would make the most sense to make him an asshole that is an antagonist to Scott Lang,
which is how you cast Bobby Cannavale too. Like that's his type.
Yeah, that's right in his wheelhouse. But instead, they just took a hard left turn away from that and make him like by the second movie, Ant-Man's biggest cheerleader. Not even like the Ant-Man superhero. He's just a fan of Scott Lang, the guy who's his wife's ex. He has every reason, but he's just like, no, buddy, we're all family now.
He's kind of like James Marsden in Superman Returns a little bit. No, don't remember Superman Returns?
I remember there being a sense of humor in Ant-Man. So.
Yeah, it's a better one. Yeah, I don't know. Did you ever care for that one? No, June, the Bryan Singer Superman film.
No.
Yeah,
I found it pretty hard. Like I enjoyed it the first time. I have a hard time watching it again. But I know some people who are hardcore fans of that one.
I guess every one of these probably. I bet there's some people who say Ant-Man is definitely the best MCU film.
I don't know. I have not come across Ant-Man fans out there.
I've not come across that yet.
I haven't found them, but they got to be there. They're like hardcore Michael Douglas fans, I guess, or Paul Rudd fans.
And yet they are the ones that I would recommend. Maybe Ant-Man is the one I'd recommend to anybody. Like you don't need to see the rest of them. You also don't need to like superhero stuff. You don't.
It's got a fun hook. The powers are a fun hook. That's it. That's all you need, really. And Paul Rudd.
Yeah,
and they're
charming people.
Explicitly comedies.
Yeah, that helps. Yeah. What was the other one that we didn't talk about?
Incredible Hulk.
Spider. I mean, well, I wanted to step up briefly for Spider-Man: Far From Home. I think doesn't get much love, but I think it's about as good as Homecoming.
I love Gyllenhaal. Gyllenhaal is the reason I enjoy that one as much as I do.
He's fun.
I'm impressed with the Spider-Man sub-series so far that they've made their outings with the Vulture and Mysterio as their villains and made them work. Like two that I would be like, you ask me to design you some Spider-Man Marvel movies, I'm not going to those guys right away.
No, I mean, I guess that they're intentionally avoiding, ones from the previous films. So, you're not going to do Green Goblin again. You're not going to do Dr. Octopus, all the big name ones. I guess we're going to not do yet. I think that's changing. I guess they're all in the third one, but it does seem like a good way to kind of make these stand on their own, kind of find new ground, because Spider-Man has been done several times at this point. So, and then the fact that they pulled it off, I guess, is the crazy part.
Yeah, and that makes it harder to do. It's also harder to have introduced Spider-Man this late in the game and have to like introduce him in the Avengers context and then sort of rewind him to the like smaller scale high school context. Right. And the way they did that, the way they worked Mysterio's like origin in to be related to Iron Man, especially since they have tied this version of Spider-Man to Iron Man from the beginning so tightly in a way that, has always seemed like a bad idea to me on paper. And yet Tom Holland, whenever he's and Robert Downey Jr. make it work on screen.
I think my problem with Far From Home is the conceit of the nuclear football power glasses that Tony Stark developed specifically for Spider-Man. Like that's a tough bridge and a little like too much to swallow, I think, for the film's concept to work for me. I mean, it's fine. It's just kind of dumb. So that's our MCU list. That's I mean, I think that we've kind of had in mind that we got to talk about this at some point, and now we kind of got it out of the way, right? That's what we're doing. We finished.
We bought ourselves a little time. We got like 3 weeks or so until Hawkeye comes out, and we have to like go right back to this well.
Of course, yeah. But there's a lot of back catalog there. We're referencing
since we started. This has been. Yeah, exactly. So, since we started, this has been working its way in our system, and we had to just like get it all out there. I knew there was something off about you, and now I know that it's because you think Doctor Strange is the best of these movies.
It's the best one, for sure. I can't wait for the new one. It'll be probably not as good as the first Doctor Strange. That's what I think. I think it'll be a disappointment in relation to the original.
It's all Guardians, baby. Play hook on a feeling. Get us out of here.
All right, that's it.
But you're